Document Recovery Report. Fort Raleigh National Historic Site, Roanoke Island, North Carolina. October 28, 2025. Principal Investigator, Dr. James Whitmore, Colonial History Department, University of North Carolina. Discovery context. This document was recovered from a sealed stone chamber 3.7 meters beneath the Fort Raleigh archaeological site, exposed following Hurricane Althea ground subsidence. The chamber remained sealed since late 16th century construction. Material analysis. The journal consists of 47 vellum pages bound with cord. DNA analysis identifies the material as human connective tissue, ligament, male donor, verified by the Smithsonian Institution. Partial DNA match to dental remains recovered from Fort Raleigh in 1992. Thomas Archard, age 34. Listed on the 1587 Roanoke Colony Manifest. DNA suggests he used his own tissue for binding, circumstances unknown. Content warning. This document contains descriptions of mass casualties, psychological deterioration, and disturbing historical events. What follows is the complete transcription. The Roanoke account. August 27, 1587. We arrived safely in the New World today, praise God. 117 souls in total. The crossing from England was difficult, but we made landfall on Roanoke Island with no lives lost. Governor John White departed this afternoon to fetch supplies from England, promising return within 3 months. The palisade fort from the previous expedition still stands, requiring only minor repairs. I confess I felt some unease at his departure, though I voiced this to no one. We are alone now in this strange land, surrounded by forest so thick it seems to swallow sound itself. The local savages have been spotted in the tree line but do not approach. This should have comforted us, yet somehow it did not. Still, we are English. We are civilized. We have God on our side. What had we to fear? October 15th, 1587. Governor White has not returned. 7 weeks since departure. Winter approaches and supplies dwindle. Hunting parties return with less each week. William reports the forest has become too quiet. No birds, no animals, just silence. November 8th, 1587. The first English child born in the New World. Her father, Ananias Dare, could not contain his joy. He walked through the settlement, declaring it a sign from God, proof that we are meant to prosper in this place. Her mother, Eleanor Dare, does not share his optimism. I visited their dwelling yesterday to offer congratulations. Eleanor sat in the corner, the babe in her arms, staring at the wall. She barely acknowledged my presence. When I spoke to her, she turned those hollow eyes to me and said only, "The forest is watching her." December 22nd, 1587. Eleanor Dare maintains strict routines while other mothers hover fearfully. She organizes the women into shifts. "Idle hands breed fear," she says. When I mentioned her earlier words about the forest watching Virginia, she dismissed them as birthing exhaustion. Yet she never walks near the eastern palisade, never turns her back to the forest. Her body betrays what her words deny. "They want her," Eleanor whispered when Ananias left the room to fetch water. "I can feel them watching. Always watching. They want her, Thomas." I asked who they were. She didn't answer, just clutched the child tighter and began to rock, humming a tuneless melody that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I left shortly after. Ananias walked me to the door, apologizing for his wife's state. "The birth was difficult," he explained. "She hasn't slept properly in days. She'll recover her spirit soon." I nodded and agreed. December 28th, 1587. I had the dream last night. I stood at the palisade, hands gripping the rough wooden posts. The moon hung full and bright above the trees, casting everything in silver light. I could see my breath misting in the cold air. I could feel the splinters in the wood beneath my palms. It felt absolutely real. In the forest, perhaps 50 yards distant, something stood at the tree line. At first, I thought it was a man. It stood upright on 2 legs, tall, perhaps 8 feet in height. But as my eyes adjusted to the moonlight, I saw that it was not a man at all. The head was wrong, shaped like a dog's, a wolf's, with an elongated snout. I could see the fur covering its skull, dark and matted. But the body beneath was human in form, though the proportions made my stomach turn. The arms hung too long, reaching past where the knees should have been. The legs bent backward slightly, like a dog's hind legs, giving it a posture that was both human and utterly not. It wore skins or furs that seemed to move in a wind I could not feel, and its eyes, God help me, its eyes were solid black, empty space, no whites, no color, just darkness that seemed to drink in the moonlight. It did not move, it did not make a sound. It simply stood there, watching me with those impossible eyes. I tried to call out. My mouth would not open. I tried to run. My legs would not move. I could only stand there, gripping the palisade, staring at this thing that stared back at me. I felt no fear in the dream itself. That came after, when I woke in my bed, soaked in sweat despite the winter cold, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was only a dream, I told myself. Only a dream. But it felt like a memory. December 29th, 1587. Everyone had the dream. I discovered this at breakfast when William Sampson stood up suddenly, his face pale as snow, and said, "Did anyone else see it? The thing in the forest?" The hall fell silent. Then Mary Cooper began to weep. John Morrison dropped his bowl. Eleanor Dare, sitting in the corner with Virginia, let out a small, choked sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "The dog-headed thing," William continued, his voice shaking, "at the tree line, just watching." "I saw it too," John said quietly. "I thought I was going mad." "The eyes," Mary whispered. One by one, every person in that hall confessed to the same dream. Not similar dreams, the exact same dream. We had all stood at the palisade. We had all seen the figure in the same location, between the same 2 oak trees. We had all noticed the way the moonlight caught the frost on the grass. We had all seen which way the thing's head was tilted, slightly to the left, as if curious. Details too precise for coincidence. 117 identical dreams. A metallic tang filled my mouth when the dream ended. The religious declared it divine vision. The practical suggested contaminated food. Neither explanation satisfied. Ananias tried to calm everyone. "Our minds are playing tricks," but Eleanor rocked Virginia in the corner, whispering, "It's here. It's finally here." Some fear God's punishment. Others blame the previous expedition's sins. Father Benedict claims we're being tested like Job, though doubt creeps into his voice. January 4th, 1588. Night after night, the same visitation. First like a fevered memory, then with new particulars, a closer tilt of the head, a smell like old wood, a child who woke smiling. After 3 nights, the dream stopped being merely a dream. After 5, it demanded daylight. The children woke screaming. We began sleeping in groups, thinking company would ward off the dreams. It did not help. We would wake together, all gasping, all having stood at that same palisade. People snapped at each other over minor disagreements. I caught myself standing at the actual palisade during the day, gazing at the forest edge. It was never there in daylight, only in the dreams. By January 4th, every person could describe the figure in perfect detail. We had all studied this thing for hours, night after night, unable to look away. The standing, the watching, the waiting, that was precisely what it wanted, to break us down. It was working. January 5th, 1588. William found the Croatoan village empty. Fires still smoldered, tools scattered. Absolute silence. One thing remained. Carved in the central post, a symbol. Beneath it, a single word in dried blood. Run. They'd known something we didn't. That night, as I lay down to sleep, I prayed the dream would not come. But when I closed my eyes, I was standing at the palisade again. The moon was bright. The figure was waiting. And this time, I knew with absolute certainty, tomorrow it would not remain in our dreams. Tomorrow it would come. January 6th, 1588, noon. I was in the storehouse counting rations when it happened. An overwhelming certainty seized me. I needed to be at the palisade. Now. I dropped my quill and walked out into the winter sunlight. Everyone else was doing the same. From every corner of the settlement, all 117 converged on the palisade. No one had called out. We simply walked, drawn by that same compulsion, until we stood together, facing the forest. At the tree line, in broad daylight, stood the figure from our dreams. It was real. Several people cried out. Mary Cooper fell to her knees. I heard Eleanor Dare's voice behind me, a strangled whimper, but I could not look away from the thing before us. 50 yards distant, it remained motionless between two oak trees, the exact spot from our dreams. In the full light of day, I could see it clearly, and the seeing made something in my mind recoil. The head was undeniably canine, a wolf's skull, I thought, though the proportions seemed wrong. The snout was too long, or perhaps too short. My eyes couldn't quite settle on which. William, standing beside me, swore later it had antlers. I saw none. John Morrison said the fur was black. I saw brown, matted with something darker. But the body was human in its basic shape. It held itself fully upright on two legs, perhaps 8 feet tall, with arms that hung too long. It wore layers of animal pelts that I recognized: deer hide, bear fur, what looked like human clothing underneath. But the eyes, God help me, the eyes were worse than in the dreams. Solid black orbs, set in the skull where eyes should be. They seemed to absorb light, creating voids in the creature's face. The creature's chest did not rise or fall. It did not blink. It simply stood, perfectly still, watching us with an attention so intense I could feel it pressing against my skin. We must have remained there for 5 minutes, no one moving, no one speaking. All of us held in that thing's gaze. Then it pointed at the forest behind itself. Then it raised a single finger and held it up. The message was unmistakable, even without words. One of you, for the forest. Then it withdrew backward between the trees. One moment it was there, solid and real in the winter sunlight. The next moment it had melted beneath the canopy, gone as if it had never existed. But we had all seen it, all 117 of us. The nightmares had come out of our sleep and into our waking world. William suggested it might be one of the previous colonists from Lane's expedition of 1585. They left 15 men behind when they abandoned the settlement. What if one survived, went mad with isolation, began wearing animal skins, living as a beast? After 2 years alone in the forest, could a man become that? It would explain the human proportions, the clothing I thought I saw beneath the pelts. But it does not explain the eyes. No amount of madness turns eyes into black voids. No amount of isolation makes a man 8 feet tall. Still, I find myself hoping William is right. I would rather face a madman than something that was never human at all. January 7th, 1588. The dream came closer. When I woke, I smelled forest inside my locked dwelling. We needed answers. William, John Morrison, and I reached the abandoned village at first light. Cold fires, empty dwellings. "We should go back," John said. "Nothing here." But smoke rose from the far side. We found the chief packing frantically, weathered face, deliberate haste. When he saw us, he spoke rapidly, hands gesturing. William translated in fragments. "He says it came before. His people made a choice. It left, but some couldn't live with what they'd done." The chief grabbed William's arm, spoke slowly. William's face went pale. He says, "You cannot refuse. You can only choose how it takes them, quick or slow, one or all." I asked what we faced. The chief held up fingers, 8, 9, 10 generations, pointed at ground, forest. "His people didn't name it," William translated. "It named itself. Croatoan. The word existed before his people came. They learned to live around it." "How do you fight it?" The chief looked at me with pity. He pressed a small carved stone into William's palm, warm, worn smooth by generations of hands, an elder's protection token. He left a braided corn cord, an elder's mark, on the post and would not meet my eyes. Picked up his pack, walked to where children waited, in broken English, "Not fight, survive." Then they were gone. We returned in silence. The chief had made this choice before, sent his grandson into the forest. His daughter drowned herself afterward. The tribe survived, but broken. Now he flees rather than watch it happen again. Evening. We found a deerskin message waiting beyond the unbarred gate. Written in crude English, letters backward, words misspelled, but the meaning was clear. It read, "One child must be chosen. 7 sunsets from now. On the last night, bind the chosen one at the tree line. Tell the child to walk into the forest. The rest will be spared. Food and medicine will come. You will survive the winter. If you refuse, all will walk." No signature, no indication of who left it. Father Benedict insists demons can mimic human script. William believes the Croatoan left it under duress, forced to translate the creature's demands. Eleanor thinks the creature itself wrote it, somehow learned our language from observing us. I don't know which explanation I find most terrifying. January 9th, 1588. We debated what it might be: demon, madman, unknown creature, disease, none satisfied. We cannot fight what we cannot define. The silence that followed was absolute. Then everyone began speaking at once, shouting, arguing, weeping. Parents grabbed their children and held them close. Some called for immediate refusal. We would not negotiate with demons. Others demanded we consider it. One life to save 116. Ananias Dare stood and tried to call for order, but his voice was drowned out. I saw Eleanor in the corner, clutching baby Virginia, her eyes wide and unblinking. She was rocking back and forth, like a woman who had known this moment was coming and had been dreading it. "We cannot do this," Father Benedict declared, the old priest's voice cutting through the chaos. "To sacrifice a child is murder. It is sin. We cannot bargain with evil." "And if we all die?" William Sampson countered. "If every child dies instead of just one? Is that God's will?" January 10th, 1588. Eleanor stood and spoke calmly. "We should draw lots. Send one child tomorrow." The room erupted. She continued in that level voice. "I love Virginia more than life, but colonies survive through hard choices. One child to save 116. That's arithmetic. Solomon's wisdom." "You would send your own daughter?" Ananias asked, horrified. "If the lot falls to her, yes. Her death would mean 15 other children live. We're losing them anyway. I choose one dying quickly over all dying slowly." The vote failed. 67 refused. Many agreed with her. They lacked her courage to voice it. The argument raged for hours. There was no consensus, no solution, only fear and anger and the terrible weight of an impossible choice. That night, no one slept. We all sat in groups, watching each other, watching the doors, watching beyond the palisade. Father Benedict led evening prayers, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. We recited the Lord's Prayer together, but I noticed several people's lips moved without sound, going through motions without faith. Some wept, some sat in silence, staring at nothing. I kept thinking about the chief's face, the terror in his eyes, the way he had run without looking back. He had seen what happened to people who refused this thing's demands, and he wanted no part of it. Dawn. We woke to find the palisade gate standing open. The guards swore they had heard nothing, seen nothing. They had been watching all night, and the gate had been barred from the inside. Yet now it stood open, and beyond it, arranged neatly on the ground, were supplies. Fresh deer meat, enough for weeks. Bags of corn, pristine and dry. Smoked fish. Clay pots filled with rendered fat. Bundles of herbs I recognized as medicinal, feverfew, yarrow, willow bark. Enough provisions for 116 people to survive comfortably until spring. 116, not 117. The message was clear. This is what you receive if you comply. A preview, a promise. I walked to the tree line. The figure stood in its usual place between the oak trees, motionless in the morning light. It did not move as I approached. I stared back, trying to understand what it wanted beyond the simple exchange it had demanded, but there was nothing in that gaze to read. Just watching. Waiting. Behind me, I heard the colonists gathering up the supplies, carrying them back through the gate. I heard their excited voices and their frightened ones. The figure tilted its head slightly, that same curious angle from our dreams. 7 sunsets, the message had said. Today was the 2nd. 5 days left to decide. I turned and walked back to the settlement, feeling those eyes on my back every step of the way. When I reached the gate and glanced back, the figure was gone. But I knew it would return. It always returned. January 11th, 1588. We held the vote today. The debate had raged for 3 days and nights. Every argument had been made, every scripture quoted, every practical consideration weighed. Now it came down to this, a simple raising of hands in the main hall, 117 souls deciding whether to sacrifice one of our children or refuse the demon's demand. Father Benedict spoke first, his voice trembling with age and conviction. "We are Christians," he said. "We do not murder innocents, no matter the cost. To do so is to damn our souls. Better we all die righteous than live with the blood of a child on our hands. God will provide. God will protect. We must have faith." William Sampson stood next. "I have faith," he said quietly, "but I also have eyes. The Croatoan tribe has lived here for generations. They know this land, they know its dangers, and they fled. They ran like the devil himself was at their heels. What does that tell us? That this thing is beyond our understanding, beyond our ability to fight. If we refuse, we all die. Every child, every mother, every soul. Is that God's will? Or is it pride disguised as righteousness?" The hall erupted in argument again. Parents held their children close. Some wept openly. Others sat in stony silence. I watched Eleanor Dare in the corner. She had barely spoken since the deerskin message arrived. Now she stared at nothing, rocking her child, whispering something too quiet to hear. "We could draw lots," John Morrison suggested. "Make it fair. Every child has an equal chance. That way, no one chooses. God chooses." God?" Mary Cooper's voice was sharp. "You would hide behind God to justify murder? Call it what it is, John. We would be sending a child into those woods to die, knowingly, willfully. That is murder, no matter how you dress it up with talk of lots and chances." "And if we refuse," William shot back, "if all 117 of us die, is that not also murder? Murder by inaction? Every parent in this room will watch their children die. Every child will watch their parents die. Is that righteousness, Mary, or is it cowardice?" The argument went in circles, each side unable to convince the other, both positions defensible, both positions damning. Finally, Ananias Dare stood. He had been silent throughout the debate, sitting beside his wife, one hand on her shoulder. Now he cleared his throat and spoke. "My daughter is the youngest among us, Virginia, not yet a month old. If we draw lots, she has the same chance as any child. I understand that." His voice broke slightly. "But I cannot do it. I cannot put my child's life in a bowl and let chance decide if she lives or dies. I cannot send any child into those woods. I vote no. I vote to refuse." Eleanor looked up at him then, her eyes brimming with tears. "Ananias, we put our faith in God," he continued. "We came to this new world with faith. We survive on faith. We must have faith now, in this time. The ships will come. Governor White will return. We will survive this winter through prayer and determination and faith. We must refuse." His words carried weight. I saw minds changing around the room, saw parents nodding. When the vote was finally called, I raised my hand to refuse. I told myself it was faith. But in truth, I simply could not bear the thought of watching a child walk into those woods. 67 hands went up to refuse. 50 hands went up to accept the demand. We had chosen. God help us. We had chosen. January 12th, 1588. We spent the next 2 days preparing for what we told ourselves would be a siege. We reinforced the palisade with extra timber, posted double guards at all hours, gathered weapons, muskets, axes, knives, though what use they might be against a creature like that I could not say. Father Benedict led prayer services every few hours. We gathered in the hall and prayed for deliverance, for protection, for Governor White to arrive with ships and soldiers and salvation. Some prayers were fervent, desperate, full of genuine faith. Others were hollow, the words of people going through motions because they had nothing else left to do. The supplies that had appeared on January 9th remained fresh. We rationed them carefully, knowing they might be the last food we received. Some colonists wanted to throw them away. Cursed food, they called it. Demon bread. But hunger is a powerful thing, and in the end, we ate. I noticed Eleanor during these days. She barely ate at all, just sat in her corner with Virginia, staring at the wall, humming that same disturbing melody. Ananias tried to comfort her, but she barely seemed to recognize him. Her eyes had taken on a distant quality, as if she was looking at something the rest of us could not see. The figure did not appear at the tree line during daylight on these days. Its absence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous, like the stillness before a storm. The dreams had stopped too. For 2 nights, we slept without visions, without that nightly summoning to the palisade, that forced audience with the creature. Some took this as a sign that our refusal had worked, that the thing had given up and left. I knew better. It had not left. It was waiting for the 7th sunset. January 13th, 1588, the 7th day. The day of reckoning arrived cold and clear. We gathered inside the palisade as the sun began its descent. No one spoke. We simply stood together, watching the western sky turn orange, then pink, then purple as light died. As the sun touched the horizon, the figure appeared. Same location as always, between the 2 oak trees. standing motionless, watching us with those void eyes. It did not gesture, did not move, did not need to. Its presence was message enough. We had made our choice. Now it would respond. The sun slipped below the horizon. Darkness fell. Hours passed. Nothing happened. No attack came. No supernatural violence manifested. The figure simply stood there through the night, a shadow among the trees, visible only when the moon caught the outline of its form. Midnight came and went. Some colonists began to whisper. Maybe it was over. Maybe the thing accepted our refusal and moved on. I did not believe it. I stood at the palisade through the night, watching that motionless form, and I knew this was not over. This was just beginning. January 14th, 1588, dawn. Morning broke clear and cold. We had survived the night. The figure was gone from the tree line, and the gray light of winter dawn. Relief swept through the colony. People laughed, some cried. Many fell to their knees in prayer, thanking God for deliverance. We had chosen righteousness over evil, and God had rewarded our faith. "I told you," Father Benedict declared. "We were tested, and we passed." The devil has no power over the faithful. Ananias embraced Eleanor, who stood stiff and unresponsive in his arms. "It's over. We're safe. Virginia is safe." But Eleanor just stared at the tree line and said nothing. I wanted to share their relief. Mid-morning, someone noticed. John Sampson was missing. His wife, Margaret, had not seen him since before dawn. His bed in the main hall showed signs of having been slept in. The blanket was disturbed. The straw mattress still held the impression of a body. But John was gone. We searched his dwelling. His boots stood by the door. His coat hung on its peg. His musket leaned against the wall. Everything he would need to go outside remained inside. But John Sampson had vanished. Perhaps he went to relieve himself, someone suggested, or went for a walk to clear his head. But the palisade gate was still barred from the inside. The guards swore no one had passed through in the night. The walls were solid. There was no way out except through the gate. Yet John Sampson was gone. We searched the entire settlement, every dwelling, every storehouse, every corner. We called his name until our voices were hoarse. Margaret sobbed, begging us to find him, to bring him back. There was no trace, no signs of struggle, no indication of how a grown man had simply ceased to exist inside a locked compound. As the afternoon lengthened, the truth settled over us like a burial shroud. The figure's absence had not meant defeat. It had meant something far worse. It had stopped watching and started taking. January 15th to 16th, 1588. They came for 2 more on the second night. Mary Cooper and her son Thomas, age 9. We found their beds empty at dawn, blankets still warm from body heat. Mary's shawl hung on its peg. Young Thomas's wooden horse lay on the floor where he'd been playing with it before sleep. The gate remained barred. The guards had heard nothing. 2 people vanished like smoke. Margaret Sampson wailed when we told her. She had held hope through the previous day that John had somehow escaped, had run off in fear or madness, but was still alive somewhere. Now her sister and nephew were gone too, and hope died in her eyes. We stopped sleeping separately that night. Everyone crowded into the main hall, pressed together for comfort and witness. If someone was going to disappear, we would see it happen. We would stop it. We posted guards inside the hall. Men took shifts, staying awake, watching over the sleepers, weapons at hand. Surely, we reasoned, whatever was taking our people could not do so if we were watching. If we stayed awake and vigilant, it made no difference. January 16th brought 3 more disappearances. Old William Fletcher, age 70, Sarah Morrison, age 19, and little Beth Cooper, age 6. All had been sleeping in the main hall. All had been surrounded by people. The guards swore they never looked away, never closed their eyes, not even to blink. 11 gone in 2 days. The vanishings stopped. Now they walk willingly. Food runs low. Children stopped playing, sit watchful. Little Margaret Sampson asked, "When will it be my turn?" Calm as asking for supper. We move like ghosts, avoiding connection. We sealed the gate again, but we all know it doesn't matter. The gate is theater. The walls are comfort. If it wants us to walk out, we will walk out. January 17th, 1588. Peter Finch tried escaping by boat. By midday, it returned empty. His scrawled message, "The forest continues beneath the water." No escape. Going to Croatoan. January 18th, 1588. Something new, something worse. We can see them now. Those who entered the woods, human-shaped figures beyond the forest edge, motionless during day. At night, they move closer. Guards reported them within 30 yards, 17 figures, not decomposing, not alive, something that used to be human. Eleanor stood at the palisade, Virginia in her arms, too calm. "I was wrong, Thomas. I thought the choice mattered, but it was never real. Whether we sent someone or refused, everyone goes anyway." Tears ran down her face. The vanishings stopped. We woke on the morning of January 18th to find everyone accounted for. No empty beds, no missing souls, just exhausted, terrified people who had somehow survived another night. The relief lasted perhaps an hour. Then William Sampson stood up. He had been sitting with his wife, holding her hand, whispering quiet words of comfort. Then he simply stopped mid-sentence and stood. His eyes were open but glazed, unfocused, like a man in a dream or a sleepwalker. "William?" His wife tugged at his hand. "William, sit down. What are you doing?" He did not answer, did not look at her. He pulled his hand free with surprising gentleness and began walking toward the door. "William! William!" Several men rushed to stop him. John Morrison grabbed his arm. Peter Finch blocked his path. William did not fight them, did not struggle or shout. He simply pushed through them with impossible strength, moving them aside like they were children. His wife ran after him, screaming his name, but he did not turn, did not acknowledge her existence. He walked to the palisade gate with that same empty expression, unbarred it with steady hands, and pushed it open. We all followed, a crowd of terrified witnesses, watching helplessly as William Sampson walked out into the cold morning. The figure stood at the tree line, same place as always, motionless. William walked straight toward it. His pace never wavered, his expression never changed. He walked like a man who had finally found what he'd been searching for, who had finally understood where he belonged. "William!" His wife collapsed at the gate, sobbing, "Please." But William did not stop. He reached the tree line, walked past the figure without pausing, and disappeared between the trees. We pulled William's wife back inside and barred the gate. She collapsed on the ground, keening. We all understood then. The vanishings had been mercy compared to this. Now we would have to watch them go. January 18th to 19th, 1588. They went one by one, then in pairs, then in small groups. Always the same, they would stand up with that glazed expression, that empty stare, and begin walking. We tried to stop them at first, tried to hold them back, restrain them, lock them in rooms. It made no difference. They were impossibly strong in their compulsion, pushing through us without violence, without emotion, just an unstoppable drive to reach the forest. And they spoke as they walked. "I'm going to Croatoan," they would say in flat, empty voices. "Croatoan is waiting. I must go to Croatoan." Always that word, Croatoan. The name of the tribe, yes, but this felt older, deeper. like the word meant something else entirely. A place, perhaps, or a state of being, something beyond the forest, beyond understanding. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, walked past me on the afternoon of January 18th. Her eyes were vacant, but she was smiling slightly, peacefully. "I'm going to Croatoan," she whispered as she passed. "It's beautiful there." How did she know? What had been shown to them in their minds to make them walk so willingly toward whatever waited in those woods? I'm forgetting things. Couldn't remember the date. Walked to storehouse for something. Returned empty-handed. Father Benedict sits staring at his Bible, not reading. Yesterday, his cross cut his palms. 7 of us left. No, 9. Perhaps 30 gone by evening. More than a quarter of our colony. The figure remained at the tree line through daylight now, constant presence, observing as we destroyed ourselves. Something troubles me. The figure casts no shadow. Even when sun positions every tree to cast long shadows eastward, the space where it stands remains uniformly lit. Yet it's clearly physical. Disturbs underbrush when moving, leaves crunch beneath its feet. How can something physical cast no shadow? I mentioned this to William. He looked strange. "It has a shadow, Thomas. I can see it clearly." Same spot, same creature. He saw shadow, I saw none. I'm no longer certain we're seeing the same thing, watching as we paid the price for our righteousness. Eleanor stood at evening, but not like the others. Her eyes weren't glazed. She wasn't moving with that empty compulsion. She simply stood, looked at me, and said clearly, "I'm going now." "Eleanor, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. But not because it's compelling me, because she's too young to walk by herself. She needs her mother." Ananias grabbed her arm. "Don't do this. Fight it. Stay with me." She looked at him with perfect clarity. "This is me fighting it. I won't let that thing take our daughter alone, confused and frightened. I'm her mother. I go with her." She touched his face gently. "Come with us or stay. But I will not abandon our child." She walked out, not with empty eyes, not with glazed expression, with purpose, with choice, with love. Ananias followed within the hour, not compelled, choosing not to let his family go without him. They walked together, the 3 of them, and disappeared into the forest as a family. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I counted those of us who remained. 14 people, maybe 15. I kept losing track, kept forgetting faces. My mind felt foggy, distant, as if I was observing everything through thick glass. The survivors sat in silence. Some prayed quietly, but the prayers had lost their fervor. These were the prayers of people going through motions, saying words they no longer believed would be heard. Others stared at nothing, waiting for their turn, waiting for that compulsion to stand, to walk, to go to Croatoan. I tried to write in my journal, but the words kept slipping away from me. I would write a sentence and forget what I'd been trying to say. I would look down and see paragraphs I didn't remember writing. Time felt strange. Had it been hours since Ananias left, or minutes? I found myself standing at the palisade without remembering walking there. The figure stood at the tree line watching, always waiting. I should have been afraid. But now I felt only a strange calm, a sense of inevitability. We had chosen wrong, and now we paid the price. The forest looked peaceful in the afternoon light. I could see shapes among the trees, people standing just beyond the tree line. Were they the ones who had gone before? I squinted, trying to see more clearly. Was that Eleanor's white dress? Was that William Sampson's distinctive height? Yes, they were all there, standing together, waiting for me. I realized I wanted to join them, not from compulsion, but from simple exhaustion. What was left here? What was I holding on to? Everyone I knew had gone into that forest. Everyone I cared about waited in Croatoan, wherever that was. Why was I still resisting? The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it brought relief. I turned from the palisade and walked back to my dwelling to write one last entry in my journal. My hands were steady as I picked up the quill. My mind was clearer than it had been in days. I knew what I had to do. I knew where I had to go. January 20th, 1588. Final entry. I don't know how many remain. Time moves strangely. We chose righteousness, refused to sacrifice one child. But everyone is going anyway. The children we tried to save walk into the forest one by one. Would sending one child have ended it? I'll never know. This is the consequence. I stand and look at the forest figures. They're all there. Eleanor, Ananias, William, the children, swaying peacefully like trees. Sometimes I hear them humming in unison, a sound that resonates in my chest. It would be easy to join them, easier than staying here with the last few, waiting for our turn. What's the point of resistance? I carved Croatoan into the palisade post this morning. Everyone says they're going to Croatoan, a place, a state, an end to being separate. Perhaps Governor White will return and find the word, or find nothing, just an empty settlement. My thoughts drift like smoke. I start sentences and forget where they lead. The forest is beautiful today, sunlight through the winter branches. I've been alone my whole life. Even among family, there was always separation between my thoughts and others. Everyone lives in isolation, but in Croatoan, that wall dissolves. Unity, true connection, the end of loneliness. Is that compulsion or truth? Maybe there's no difference. My hand shakes as I write, not from fear, from eagerness, from wanting to stop resisting and join them. Someone should know what happened, that we tried, that we made choices, that we were real people who failed. The sun is setting now. It's almost time. I can feel it, a pull, gentle but insistent, like a hand tugging at my sleeve, like a voice calling me home. I'm not afraid anymore. That should frighten me, but it doesn't. I just feel tired. Tired of being separate, tired of being alone, tired of being only Thomas when I could be part of something. I'm upright now. When did I stand? I don't remember deciding to stand. But here I am, on my feet, the journal in my hands. I should put it in the chamber, seal it away, leave it for whoever comes after. Evidence, truth, memory. The gate is open. I don't remember opening it. Did someone else open it? Is there anyone else left to open it? Eleanor is smiling. She's holding Virginia and smiling and beckoning me forward. Come join us, Thomas. Come be with us. Come to Croatoan. I'm walking. I don't know if I'm choosing this or if it's choosing me. Maybe there's no difference. Maybe there never was. The forest is welcoming. The trees are beautiful. The air smells of pine and earth and something else, something I don't have a word for, something that smells like home. I'm going to Croatoan. I'm going home. Signed, Thomas Archard. Document Recovery Report. Addendum. Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. December 8th, 2025. Dr. James Whitmore, Principal Investigator. Critical Discovery. The Sealed Pages. The final 8 pages of Thomas Archard's journal were fused together with an organic adhesive. After 6 weeks of careful chemical treatment, we successfully separated them. What we found, pages 1 to 39, written by Thomas Archard, handwriting confirmed. Pages 40 to 47, written by a different person entirely. Handwriting analysis. The final pages match Governor John White's documented handwriting from British Museum archives. DNA analysis. The adhesive binding the pages is human blood, type A negative. This matches Governor White's genealogical line. It does not match Thomas Archard, type O positive. Conclusion. Governor John White returned to Roanoke in August 1590. He found Thomas's journal. He read it. Then he added his own account on the final pages and sealed the entire journal in the stone chamber. What follows is White's confession, hidden for 435 years. The sealed pages, Governor John White's account, August 19, 1590. I found this journal in Thomas Archard's dwelling today. Read every word. Thomas described everything, the dreams, the creature, people walking willingly into the forest. His final entry ends mid-sentence. I'm going to Croatoan. I'm going home. He sounded peaceful, like he'd found something he'd been searching for. Then I found them, all 117 colonists, standing in a clearing in perfect concentric circles. Eleanor, Ananias, baby Virginia, now 3 years old, standing on her own, all motionless, eyes open but unseeing, their breathing so shallow I had to press my hand to Eleanor's chest to confirm she lived, her heartbeat faint, irregular, wrong somehow, all humming a single note in perfect unison. I shook Eleanor. She didn't respond, but her eyes tracked my movement, slow, deliberate, as if she saw me but couldn't remember who I was. She was in there. Something was in there. Father Benedict pressed his cross to Eleanor's forehead. Her pupils dilated suddenly, black swallowing the color entirely. But she didn't flinch, didn't blink, just kept humming. Possession, he said. I'd just read Thomas's journal. He said they chose this, that they found unity, peace, an end to loneliness. But looking at them, eyes empty, mouths slack, that endless droning hum, I felt only terror. Captain Spicer said, "We cannot take them to England. If this spreads, we doom thousands. We cannot leave them here for others to find. We cannot study them without risking ourselves." He was right, but I didn't know what they were. Possessed? Transformed? Trapped? Transcendent? I still don't know. August 20th, 1590. We killed them all. Swords through their hearts, one by one. All 117. They didn't fight, didn't scream, just fell. I killed Eleanor, I killed Virginia. I told myself it was mercy. But I'd read Thomas's journal. I knew they'd walked there willingly. I knew he described it as beautiful. But the devil comes as an angel of light, and I killed them, because I had to. August 22nd, 1590. I'm sealing this journal in a stone chamber beneath the fort. The official report will say the colony vanished. This is the truth. I found them alive, transformed, perhaps, and I killed them because I didn't understand what they'd become. I chose violence over understanding, fear over faith. I killed 117 people who may not have needed killing. I will never know if I saved them or murdered them. I am sealing these pages with my own blood. The same blood that runs in Eleanor's veins. The same blood I spilled when I drove my sword through her heart. Let whoever opens them judge more wisely than I did. Governor John White, August 22nd, 1590. Appreciate you tuning in for the chills. Hope this helped you unwind. Share your story ideas in the comments and subscribe to become part of our nocturnal crew. Until next time, take care.